Hi, I'm Jay, as said before. My day job, I'm working at the Adobe XD team. Besides that day job, I'm pushing two non-for-profits forward. One is OpenDeviceLab.com, which helps to spawn and to locate places where designers and developers can test their work across a variety of devices for free. And the other is the Berlin chapter of the Interaction Designers Association, where we are fostering knowledge exchange across a community of experts in devices. In my free time, I enjoy building furniture for our house and our garden. Last January, our third kid was born, and while juggling our stuff around the house to make room for a baby boy, my partner had the idea of getting a bunk bed for our two elder daughters. We sat down to define the functionality that piece of furniture should cover, which turned out to be two guardrailed beds for the girls, including a ladder, a guest bed, huge drawers for toys, a bookcase, and a pull-out table for our puzzle queens. Because why did that idiot ask for their wishes in the first place? We took a look at available out-of-the-box solutions which really didn't meet our requirements at all. We took a look at what others build in terms of custom kids' beds, which helped in terms of inspiration, and to do the necessary user research with our daughters, and to also clearly identify what we're not going to do. Look at this one. It says, here's the design for kids. A bunk bed based on the Velociraptor cage from the first Jurassic Park film. The box shape and leather make for a perfect bunk bed. Well, I'm not really that convinced, Dave. But anyway, working in iTech is great, but those digital things I do, well, that's all pretty virtual stuff. My work doesn't bring up things that I could touch with my hands or make my small kids understand, hey, your dad built this, right? So that's among the reasons why I love to find some balance in working with wood. Ideate, plan, go out, select raw materials at the wood shop, turn a selection of 1.5 tons of this, into something like this, just to end up with something as simple, solid, and durable like this. Before attempting to create that bunk bed, I had built less complex pieces of furniture. And here's another example that's been made out of the same pile of raw wood. Went from here to there to a unique and tailor-made solution for a master bathroom. So before you can build this, you need a design and detailed specifications. And in the past, I used to sketch my plans with pen and paper. More complicated parts of a project needed several detailed drawings, and that's where I typically took my pen and paper work to OmniGraffle, to draw the project from multiple angles. Anyhow, before you can begin to format the board or even go and buy materials, you have to create a part list, which I did in Excel. But all those documents were never connected to each other. And while designing the project, wherever I realized a more fundamental change was needed, I had to examine everything, and too often to draw all those plans again. While I fleshed out the raw idea for that bunk bed, using pen and paper, it dawned to me that the old patchwork of tools would not cut it for this thing. Also, this bunk bed, drawer, bookcase, guest bed, puzzle table ladder was like sort of far too complex to be based off a multitude of 2D plans. But I've become so familiar with my cumbersome workflow. And yes, I did try to switch to CAD, 3D-aided design tools before, but I never really figured out how that worked. Up until that day, when I found a YouTube video of a carpenter explaining SketchUp through the eyes and hands of a carpenter. With that narrative, I immediately understood how to use that tool for my woodworking needs and began designing the bunk bed in 3D. It took me a week, and I had managed to design everything in one tool, in one file, without the added friction and error potential of a multitude of disconnected documents. I was able to prototype and show the intended outcome to validate my ideas with my partner in that one tool. And then I could even take my 3D design to the workshop, pull out the specs to transform it into the 197 parts I needed to build the bunk bed. Did you ever get to read that hilarious article written by Keaton Herzer? Anybody? Keaton summarizes the ideal design workflow for us. In Keaton's article, your workflow begins with pen and paper. You take pictures of your sketches and make them clickable using POP. But hey, wireframes are needed, so OmniGraffle. But dang, a drop-down menu is required. So where are you, Balsamiq? Let's rebuild all those wireframes with you. You realize you dislike Balsamiq, so you reattempt the same task using Axure. You realize you also dislike Axure, so why not jump to Illustrator and the wireframing kit for $89? You export your wireframes as a PNG and share them via InVision with your team. Only to wake up the next morning and cry into your breakfast bowl because all of the mean comments that Jonathan left on your InVision prototype. At some point, those wireframes are signed off to Sketch to work on the visual design. Now export your hi-fi design as a PNG and import it into Flinto. But your stakeholder doesn't want to install the Flinto app, so off to Principal to make those screens interactive. And while this article is fun and will make you laugh, the ugly reality it is all about is that rather inefficient, cumbersome, error-prone workflow involving a patchwork of software tools that are creating a multitude of disconnected files, which are probably all named something like v8 final.3-really final underscore master-2. So, what could we do to change that? Well, at Adobe, we have many great tools. Some are around since a quarter of a century. Tools that can and are being used to accomplish things they've never been designed for in the first place. So at Adobe, about 2 years ago, a team came together to design a design tool for designers. We looked at our favorite pieces of flagship apps and decided to start from scratch. We wanted to completely reimagine a design tool from today's perspective, build something modern and future-proof. What we built from ground up is now called Adobe Experience Design, or short, Adobe XD. With XD, we aim to enable you to design at the speed of thought. And good defaults encourage good design. So on day 0, a number of principles have been defined for XD that are core to the product and drive decision-making. First, XD is lightweight and approachable, but powerful and not limiting. Second, 0 friction. Performance and UI should feel invisible to the user. XD is direct and real-time, accurate and instant. We're not beholden to traditional Adobe UIs. We took what's appropriate and left the rest. And third, XD is transparent and open. The community, you, are involved, and we're open and responsive to feedback, update our users on feature and bug progress, and our roadmap is publicly available. XD is fast and fluid while we're navigating around this set of artboards. Drawing is simple, precise, and vector-based, but pixel accurate. Changing the design is in this repeat grid, or adjusting those stars, which is another repeat grid. Let's add my smartphone to the view here, where any edits made to the design are reflected in real time on the device. Let me go to the prototyping mode and wire up the home to the list to the detail screen, and we can instantly test our work to check how it feels on the actual device. XD allows you to do all the work, from wireframing or lo-fi design over to hi-fi design, right into prototyping, and up to sharing your work with your shareholders, maybe with your shareholders, with your stakeholders, to get their feedback, all the way down to production. The short-term vision is to enable you to create all your specs and assets from within XD up to handoff in that one single XD file. And another thing we recently announced to be added soon is versioning integrated to XD, as well as the upcoming collaboration features we're currently working on. Imagine to design at the speed of thought, but together in real time, just like you'd be collaborating on a Google Doc or an Office 365 document. Fast Company has had a lot to say about XD. From a slick design with zero learning curve to revolutionizing the way designers design and prototype website and apps. The publication recently recognized XD in its 2016 Innovation by Design Awards as a winner in the app category. And that's some pretty heady stuff. But my favorite comment from Fast Company may be about the completely new development process we are employing and the thousands of independent designers who are looped into that process to test builds and provide feedback to our pre-release programs. And Fast Company call that a uniquely nimble and transparent approach from an industry behemoth. And the core of my talk today is to share some specifics on that approach with you and explain where it has so fundamentally changed the way product is being designed and developed at Adobe. XD is currently available as a so-called beta version. And we all would probably associate beta with not there yet. Let me explain why this assumption does not match XD and how we managed to redefine beta. We all know this kind of beta software that has a lot of features, but lacks in terms of deep implementation, stability, quality, performance, or all of that. The first beta has all the features, but it doesn't have a deep feature implementation because it requires time to flesh out all the very details. Then subsequent updates are being released, aiming to add the missing details and catch up in terms of quality, right? So this catch-up, ladies and gentlemen, fails very often due to one specific reason. There is no solid foundation. No solid and well-engineered technical foundation, because how do you know what to prepare for when you have not taken the time to think through everything to its very detail? And no solid and well-designed user experience because same reasons. This imaginary tool in question is probably going to suck in terms of performance and stability, and it will most likely break workflows or third-party integrations such as plugins, while design and engineering realize that some groundbreaking changes are needed at a later point. Organic growth is on. Among other reasons for this not being the ideal scenario, looking at this, why would you ever release a beta version of your product at all? Typically, teams would name reasons like, we want to share our vision and show how we envision the product. Anybody in the room that is finding the bug within this statement? Well, there you go. Our vision, how we envision the product. Next reason teams typically name, we want feedback to validate the direction we have taken. Or check out this very common reason for releasing a beta. The goal is to stake our claim and ramp up for success of the product. Well, which product? Including which feature set? Hey, by staking that claim, did you just make any promises that could be hard to deliver on at a later point? Most likely, yes, you did. And how's your successful go-to-market looking now? When I compare a standard methodology that has been in place in software product development, looking back at that way to work, well, People have simply implemented too fast. I have implemented too fast, using this standard methodology in my own 30-people software company in my time before working for Adobe. People have implemented too fast. We have implemented too fast, and you have also probably implemented too fast, both on the engineering side as well as in product management and design. Implemented without profound user research. In result, we've really only accomplished one thing with certainty. We shipped in the scheduled time frame. What we shipped, unfortunately, often has been a flawed implementation that our users never really wanted in the first place. So how can we end up with such an undesirable result for all involved parties? In software development, we have three key parameters coming into play. Quality, time, as in time to release, and scope, which means feature set. On the XD team, we're using this own version of the magic triangle of project management. We call it the Iron Triangle. The logic is, it is impossible to constrain more than two of the three parameters. Constrain scope and time, and quality suffers. Constrain quality and scope, and you won't make the release date. And very often, the wish for the largest possible feature set built with limited time and resources would result in bad quality and user experience. And quite often, you will also see late effects surfacing months or even years later that render the product in question less approachable, makes it suck in terms of performance or stability or simply unusable. And those effects affect from or any further development and necessary upkeep from the engineering side as well. Does this ring a bell at some of your own recent projects? Or maybe software tools you're currently using? As a solution to that dilemma, we needed to redefine beta for XD. Because, hey, of course, we wanted to show our vision to the public, to be able to learn and to iterate. So as opposed to churning out a fully fledged storefront based on our own assumptions, we made the decision to start our beta releases with a minimal feature set that shows depth and is well thought through to all those relevant details we wanted to validate, and that shows a solid design and implementation, and that matches the quality standards we set for XD. And then, when we have heard back and can measure ourselves and build on top of those learnings, then we would go ahead and add functionality and detail, prioritizing what is important to our users, one solid step at a time. With that beta 1 in March last year, we have delivered our vision of the product, but at the performance and user experience of a full release, just with less features. And since that first release 10 months ago, we've iterated pretty quickly by releasing an updated quality beta with improvements and added feature requests every single month, which, yes, is actually a pretty heavy release cadence. What we believe is that this approach is allowing our users, you, to influence and shape the product while actually having a great experience. And we believe our decision to not trust our own assumptions, to leave out even the most obvious functionality, and to define those details first, together, is really key in building an awesome Adobe XD. Think again of that Iron Triangle. What we did is, we delivered in time, we delivered quality at final production release level, and we did so by reducing the scope. And while we just released the 10th beta of XD for macOS and have the 3rd generation for iOS and Android in those stores that know no beta, we're working at full steam on XD for Windows 10. Even though XD is still named beta, we are absolutely convinced it is already production ready. Thousands of designers worldwide agree and are actually using XD in production. So don't fear the beta. You'll miss some functionality while we're busy adding that in. But hey, that's what you miss with every other of your current tools as well. Working around by patchworking things together. But if you're not using XD today, you're definitely missing out on a great user experience and on designing at the speed of thought. So I told you how we redefined beta, but how did we manage to decide what to actually implement for beta 1? What could be done to identify the true needs of our users better and more precise? How could we ensure not to base our decisions on individual opinions? Well, we started off with the same method we are now using on an ongoing basis, user research. This is where we empathize, define, make something, show it, learn, and keep improving. Active user research happens in form of workshops, at customer meetings, or at community meetings. And I'm organizing another round of those in late February in London and in Berlin. So if you're interested, let me know, and I'm happy to invite you. User requests and feature ideas, but also those from our own backlog, would be evaluated and designed internally, then discussed with a selected group of users, or implemented as prototype and being discussed in our private pre-release program first before we go into production. And the next step is to implement any validated features into the public beta and ask for feedback from the public. The inception part is we actually use XD to prototype XD, which can be a bit confusing sometimes. Imagine being a designer designing a design tool inside the design tool you're designing for designers. Anyway, the whole team is working on taking and qualifying user feedback, and this is something we're taking from social media, comments to our blog posts, or straightforward via email, but primarily via user voice. Here's a screenshot from early October showing our user voice instance. 605 unique feature requests that came in those 8 months since beta 1 on Mac in March. Feature requests are being upvoted by the community, which influences directly which features will be addressed by us next. And as a team, we're asking questions, refine those ideas, discuss details, and provide a status completely transparent and in a dialogue with everybody. Layers are such an example. In the team, we said that XD needs no layers panel. Our collective standpoint has been that you simply should not need such a complex abstraction layer to design with XD. Just think of layers in Photoshop or Illustrator and how they add friction and complexity sometimes. Take this one, for instance. I mean, are you kidding me? Well, such an overhead should not be required to even create the most complex stuff within XD. And many pretty complex prototypes built by the community prove that to us, sort of. I've seen the visualization of an ATM containing way more than 450 artboards without layers being available in XD. Well, but the people really wanted their layers back. Look at that thing. 812 upvotes and 65 comments to it. And that is a pretty darn clear feature request. How people envisioned layers inside XD in detail, well, that comes through pretty clearly with the stream of comments to that feature request, where users are iterating on each other's ideas, challenge each other's concepts in such a constructive and professional way, it's simply unbelievable. Do you know the bottom of the internet problem? Basically saying you shouldn't read the comments, because latest with a third reply, they will only contain misleading information and people bitching at each other. Not here, not at all. Only lovely people. And we've received far over 25,000 upvotes and over 6,000 comments until last October. To wrap up the story, well, we just shipped layers within XD. By default, the layers panel is hidden, so it won't get in your way. If you want layers, just bring up the panel. And it is context sensitive, only showing the elements involved to your current work focus. It is coming the way the users wanted it, not in the way Adobe thought how layers should behave. And it came to XD because the users wanted it. And because we've left our own assumptions at the door. To wrap it up, with this new approach in product development, we've unlocked two major things. First, rapid validation and iteration. While we do have our own opinion, assumptions are prohibited. By leveraging user research, we're getting great feedback, and we're able to fail early. Second, user engagement. With every pre-release and public beta, users are telling us the most pressing issues. We are prioritizing accordingly and deliver a constant and relevant value add to the product. And that's it so far. We'd love to hear back from you. You've all got the URL on your wrists. And to hear how the improved XD, the recent beta just came out 2 days ago, is feeling to you these days. It's a free download. And what we did here back so far is just lovely and strengthens us in breaking more rules and redefining and improving our methodology. Do you guys work at any other large enterprise and are looking to change the way you design and develop product? My message to you is you can do it. Don't assume others will do it for you. Don't assume what your users want from you. Ask. So, what about that bunk bed? Here's the production-ready beta I rolled out to my daughters after 3 weeks of building and pre-assembling parts. Well, the kids can't sleep on the floor just because it takes Dad more than 1 day to put the whole thing in place. So for the first night, when they took the product for a spin, as you can see, still some planned features were missing, but the majority of it is actually both real and solid. I've then added the less critical functionality over the next days. And that's the final thing delivered, including that nasty pull-out puzzle table. If you know of any furniture awards, take this as my candidate recommendation. My kids would vote for it. And who knows, maybe they are going to become great designers later in their lives and will join a worldwide community of Adobe XD users just to enjoy finding XD still living and breathing the same lean principles we're measuring it against today. I'd love that. Have an awesome conference, and thanks everybody.